Hey, my name's Ice, and if you watched my last video, then you'll know I recently started my very first playthrough of Dark Souls 3, and I'm happy to present Part 2, through Cathedrals and Catacombs. So before we begin, let's recap what happened last time, though I'd suggest just watching the video. Click that little box in the top right corner to get to it directly. It's good stuff, I promise. Otherwise, I talked about my background as a gamer and how this world made me feel. I then faced off against Udex Gundyr, beat him in 2 tries, saw Firelink Shrine for the first time, gorgeous, headed to the High Wall of Lothric, met this old lady that I am absolutely certain is evil, and then defeated Vort after 2 tries as well. Next was the Undead Settlement and the Cursed Rotten Greatwood, which took me 1 try and kinda sucked. After that thing, I went to the Crucifixion Woods and found the Crystal Sage, which so far was the longest fight, taking me 3 tries. And the video ended with me besting the Abyss Watchers in 1 attempt. Now the purpose of these videos isn't to be a boss rush or anything. Really, I just want to share my experiences and thoughts playing this game for the very first time. This game's often regarded as FromSoft's love letter to their fans, and every section of it resonates that sentiment in a very wicked way. And I think the coolest thing that I've noticed so far is that each zone evolves the experience further, which probably doesn't make any sense just yet, but what I've seen so far has built on top of each other, from realizing how exploration worked on the High Wall, to the careful but tedious, at times, level design in Undead Settlement, the absolute boom of horror from the Road of Sacrifices and on. I've been treated to a wealth of moments that are shaping this game and my feelings surrounding it. I'm not ready to tell you the sum of it all, but I am ready to say this game's a monumental achievement, one that can't and won't be replicated even just 15 hours in. I'm sure there's some doubters or naysayers that say it doesn't look special, and I don't know what to tell you other than stick around. Maybe you'll see what I'm seeing. We pick back up heading to the Cathedral of the Deep. I guess I should have done it last video, but that's alright. In hindsight, I'm glad I left it for later. Going along this path, I came across 2 NPCs and made quick work of them. Also, here's a view. I rushed up this path and was greeted by a kamikaze with an absolutely horrifying death screech. I think I'm starting to lose touch with reality. Am I afraid of the game, or am I afraid of something that's gonna yell at me? Please stop. Please. Then there was this door. Something about it, I felt like it was taunting me, challenging me to see what was behind it, as if there was a surprise. A surprise that wouldn't make me happy. But see, I was desperate for a bonfire, and it just so happens that's the first thing I want to talk about. Desperation. I've never felt it so strongly in a game before. Even Elden Ring, I never felt pressured to find the next site of grace. I knew there'd be one coming soon whether I decided to fight or decided to run. But in this game, there's no feeling quite like finding a bonfire while the gnawing slush of maggots writhing in your character beckons in your ear. I had to hear it, so now you have to as well. Though, I didn't find a bonfire. Either I missed it, or it was so well hidden my pea-sized brain couldn't process where it was. I looked far and wide, running through graves, zombies, whatever the hell this is and whatever the hell that is, and at this point I was low on Estus. So I used a homeward bone to send me back to a bonfire and reset. This time I figured there's nothing to lose, and I didn't want to go through that whole ordeal again, so I opened the door. Damn it. And then I saw this bastard in Downward Dog and talked to him. And me being a nice guy, I agreed to touch his special strip of painting that he'd probably been dry humping for the last 30 minutes while I worked up the courage to open the damn door. I really shouldn't trust anyone in FromSoft games, should I? I was able to teleport right out, but you know the best part? I didn't touch the f***ing bonfire. So, I had to rush back, and I hoped I'd see Mr. Red Hood again, just to kick his ass a little. And I didn't find him. This game never gives you what you want. So I carried on. I had a mission after all, and that's to beat the game. I used the ladder from a shortcut that I found earlier and started heading to this big cathedral. I couldn't enter from the side, so I ran along this path and found what I suspect was the front. Upon entering, I spotted a big dude lying in what looked like a puddle of shit. Seriously, what is going on? Does the absurdity ever end? I mean, I have no clue. But this game constantly takes you from confidence to fear to grief to joy to madness. What is going on in Miyazaki's head? I ended up lower in the cathedral and closer to the manure monster, and lo and behold, when you start passing across the threshold, it wakes up and tries to cave your skull in. And it succeeded. The second time though, I ran right by it and found a neat empty room. I then sought retribution, so I fought the guano gobbler, and you end up smacking its ankles for a good 2 minutes until it dies, It kind of reminded me of the fire giant from Elden Ring, but whatever, I got my revenge and also got some Game of Thrones armor. Oh, and here's another view. I then found Patches, and Patches is gonna Patches, which ends up leading you to explore even more, you know, to give him a piece of your mind when you find him. Not only that, but he had Sigward's armor, so what's going on here? At this point I understood that he went across the bridge, but I had no clue how to get there. I ended up finding an elevator that took me up a watchtower, which overlooked the path that wraps around the cathedral. Fun little tidbit. And there's a ladder attached to the back. This leads you to some rooftops which feeds into the cathedral's rafters, a thin cross lattice loaded with enemies which connects the two sides of the building directly. A nerd, like me, would call this verticality. I'm predicting I'll end up gushing about level design on these videos a lot, but there's literally not an inch of wasted space in this building. You can really break it into 4 floors where every passageway has a purpose, some more important than others, sure, but the thing is, this type of design is so striking. It burns a mental image onto your brain where you remember every step you took, because exploration feels meaningful. Everywhere can lead anywhere. I've mentioned how the game rewards you with items or secrets, and this is just another example. You're rewarded with the satisfaction of finding this particular path, and I can tell you right now, on subsequent replays, it'll never leave my mind. To wrap it all up, I got Sigward's armor back from Patches and then found Sigward in a well and returned it to him. Now it's time for a boss fight. This one was a gimmick, but a really interesting gimmick at least. See, just to gather some context, previously I met with a character named Anri. She told me that the Cathedral of the Deep, which is our current location, housed the Lord of Cinder, Aldrich. So upon entering the boss fog, I was greeted by the Deacons of the Deep, but I was expecting Aldrich. In truth, they were cannon fodder placed here to crowd and slow the player down. But not all was pointless. Listen to this music for one. The fight honestly wasn't that bad, it was just easy, but I think the big takeaway from this is the boss arena and the context, more so than the battle. We were to meet Aldrich, right? Instead we meet a gaggle of worshippers, but this pillar in the center seemingly shows more people in agony, oppressed by something. I'm not sure what this means, but I guess the connection I'm making is that Aldrich is clearly worship, seemingly due to fear and domination. I have no clue what Aldrich is, but my vision is a horrifying monster of some sort with the face and temperament of a bureaucrat. That's besides the point, of course, but this type of visual storytelling and free thinking is a hallmark of FromSoft's design choices. They want you to look around rather than be told. They want you to be subverted, distracted, dragged through mud, bombarded by fire to see what all they have in store for you. So when you get there, when you see these things, you end up tying your own loose ends, forming your own story, idea, and I think it ends up meaning more to you in the end. But next up, we arrive in the Catacombs of Carthus, and shit got real here. The difficulty spike in this zone took the game from maybe like a 7 to like a 9. You end up finding Anri here telling you she was separated from Horus, blah blah blah, who cares? But really I want to highlight something. Pay attention to this archer guy because I'm about to dive into how FromSoft puts together their encounters. Well, at least what I've noticed. I'm not a game designer or anything. Typically in any game you're liable to expect 3 types of mobs. Not bosses. Mobs. Aggressors, diversions, and trainers. FromSoft specifically loves using diversions, and I mean loves them. Every instance you're meant to react in the blink of an eye, which is why we die so often. You have no idea what's going to happen, so you can only hope to guess. It just so happens our guesses can be wrong. So let's rewind a bit, back to the cathedral where we saw the poop peddler. When you first arrive, it's sleeping. As you start moving across this plane, it wakes up. Simple, right? Well, you can't fight it from this position, so this would be a diversion. Then, in the same region, there are items. Now your attention is pulled 2 ways. 1, you're looking to loot, and 2, you need to observe the giant to avoid its smashes. Then you come around this corner and there's an enemy, but most importantly, an archer. As you see, what caught me up was the archer hitting me, getting stuck on the enemy that was attempting to blow me up, followed by the giant slamming me down. I was diverted and overwhelmed. My second time through now, there's no additional diversion with items, so my concern concern is entirely on the giant. I can track its movement far easier, and the archer is no longer a surprise, so I get through without a problem. A fairly straightforward sequence, but this sets a precedent. The game's been hiding archers, but now you throw in explosive enemies on a slim passageway, plus essentially using an enemy as an environmental hazard. Now let's break down this scene back in the Catacombs. We see the staircase, we see this archer, and a few skeletons walking the staircase. I approach the staircase. Now there are also skeletons in the previous room, but I cleared them earlier, so I'm only worried about the archer and what's ahead. I'm thinking to myself, easy peasy. I have to dodge these bastards, watch out for that mother, and all of a sudden, a noise. A shifting. I know this game is inspired by Berserk, but it turns out Miyazaki's also an Indiana Jones fan as a skeletal boulder starts rolling behind me. Obviously I'm in panic mode. The beauty of this situation is, it evolves on the previous encounter by instead hiding the environmental hazard from the player entirely, only giving an audio cue while having this all occur on an even thinner platform. This all goes to show, FromSoft doesn't give a I died. Obviously I died, and I died again a second time because, well, I guess I tripped. The third time, okay, I get it. Just stand on the supports and move as straight as you can, run into the tunnel and face whatever other bullshittery awaits, which was not very far away. I came across this room, greeted by a creaking wooden bridge and a few skeletons with a lot of bones lying on the ground for some reason. I mean, there could have been enough bones to support a theory of a small-scale war going on in this room. Moving forward, I approach the bridge slowly, and again, an audio cue.
Oh my goodness!
I sprinted across the bridge, and something about it made me feel I could chop it, so I slapped the wood beams, praying to Jesus this is just a shitty joke, and to my surprise, it was. The bridge snapped, and with it fell a horde of bones. I also noticed the bridge could be scaled downwards, though I decided not to for the time being and continued forward. Now this time, I knew the door was evil. I opened the door and was surrounded by pots and a single altar with a goblet resting on top of it. I was taught not to touch things that weren't mine, but here I guess I'm being encouraged to do exactly that. A cutscene starts as darkness oozes out of the goblet and you're enveloped in this arena. And out emerges a giant skeleton donning a crown. Wolnir looks so freaking cool. It's too bad he's another gimmick boss, but I think this is honestly one of the better gimmick fights I've encountered. The presentation is gorgeous here and surprisingly dynamic for such an obscure view. I mean, look at him as he winds up this giant sword attack and plunges it into the ground. The fight itself was very straightforward. Obviously the glowy stuff is where you're supposed to strike him, and each bracelet essentially is a third of his HP. The one bad part about this is the miasma that he leaves behind as he pulls his body across the arena. It caught me up the first time just because I couldn't see it. I mean, like, I could see the smoke, but I couldn't see that it was reaching that far out. I don't know. Oh well, you know, I mean, it would have been cool to first try this one, but I came back and he couldn't catch me slipping twice. Now that Wolnir was defeated, it was time to see what the bridge offered me. I went down, fought a demon, and ended up in the smoldering lake. This place. It's pretty much the Lake of Rot in terms of purpose, but instead of rot, there's a giant ballista that is constantly shooting bursts of 3 arrows at you, and on top of that, there's a giant worm that spits thunder. And guess what else? 4 giant crabs! At least it was fun to kill the worm using the ballista, and there was another boss here. I don't think there's anyone in the world that would find this boss memorable or interesting at all. The old Demon King comes off as filler more than anything, but I'm always down to prove my mettle, so that's alright, I guess. Not much was going on here, honestly. I don't know if there was more to explore because I didn't get too deep besides managing a quest. I'm not sure if you can disable the ballista. I imagine you would be able to, and looking back over the footage, I feel like there is something that I missed, but I don't know if I care to go back. Thus, the journey for now nears its end. I went back to Wolnir's room and went through the door that opened for me, assuming it's the way out. Upon exiting the cave, we then find Irithyll of the Boreal Valley. Boreal? I don't know. But I think this view represents how beautiful games can be, and I can't wait to explore it. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in next time for part 3. But before I let you guys go, I also want to talk a bit about what to expect with this channel. For those interested, you may notice this video was far more deliberate and detailed than the last. The play session used for this was 4 hours and 30 minutes long, as opposed to a compiled 10 hours of footage last time. Now this one was much shorter for a few reasons. I had plenty to explain for one. I really wanted to end on the cliffhanger of finding Irithyll, and as promised, I've been wrapping up Witcher 3. I'm a man of my word. As of recording, I've just finished the main storyline and am starting the DLCs with Hearts of Stone. I've got a lot to share on what happened in the end. I might have made some mistakes. But expect a follow-up video on Witcher next Friday. I have some other plans that I'd want to say are set in stone too, but I'd hate to go back on a promise, so I'll let you know next video. And I think I'll have these types of updates attached pretty often going forward. Anyways, have a good day, and most importantly, have fun out there. Bye-bye.